that we can describe. So at the end of the last lesson, I was trying to convince you of a way of describing number patterns with a formula. And I introduced you to this notation where we have n is the position number and Tn is the value of the term. So essentially what we did was we learned how to relate the two items to each other in a formula. And let me bring up that thing again, 1, 5, 9, 13. What I basically taught you was the following. I said, if you want to build a formula for a linear pattern or a linear sequence, what you need to know is you need to know what the step size is or what the constant difference is, okay, +4. And then what you do is you write that step size in front of the n. Oh, hold on. So let's get that out again. So we write that step size in front of the n. Now, at the moment, if I had to see, does this formula describe the number pattern I'm trying to describe? It actually doesn't. And we can test that it doesn't by simply substituting in values for n. Now remember, n refers to the position and Tn refers to the term or the value of the term. So let's see what happens. If at the moment, my formula says T1 is 4 times 1, which is 4. And it says T2 is 4 times 2, which is 8. Are the first two terms of my number pattern 4 and 8? If I look above, well, what are the first two terms? The first term is 1, and the second term is 5. So it seems like I'm not a very good math teacher because the answer isn't correct. I want to know from the previous lesson, what do I have to do in order to make this formula describe the number pattern above? So put it in the chat. What is missing? Oh, I see some of you already started putting it in there. So what I said was, at the moment, my formula says I have 4 as the first term. But in the actual original number pattern, I don't have 4, I actually have 1. And so in order to make this pattern match, okay, if I see a lot of you are saying add 1, but the problem is, guys, the very first term is actually, our first term is too big. According to the formula, my first term is 4, but in the original, my first term is 1. So I think instead of, we have to take away 3. And so when I build a formula for a number pattern, a linear number pattern, we always have the step size or the constant difference, and then we have the bit called the balancing part. And the balancing part, we just look at our first term in the original, well, in the pattern that we've got, and we make sure it matches the original number pattern. So let me show you what I mean, because it sounds a bit wordy the way I was saying it. If I'm correct, if I now sub in 1 into my formula, I get 4 times 1 minus 3, which is 1, which I think is good news because the very first term was indeed 1. Now, we're going to say T2 is 4 times 2 minus 3, and I get 5. And this is good news because here's my 5 here, here's my 5 there. And so then the last one, just to make sure, let's do 3. If I want T3, I'm going to go 4 times 3 minus 3. So that's 12 minus 3, which is 9. And I think I'm on a roll because this is 9 like this. And what is the original sequences thing? It was 9. Okay, so that is how we build the formula. Now, the fantastic thing is once you've built the formula, if I ask you, what is the 10th term and what is the 15th term, it's much easier to calculate. So I want you to do that now. I want everyone to calculate the 10th term in my number pattern and the 15th term. And this is my little made-up exercise, and then we're going to get going with practice. I want the 1st term and I want the 15th term from this. Guys, if I could ask you to put yourselves on mute. I'm going to also come to my door because there's a siren going on. And I want to see your answers in the chat. So the other thing I should have mentioned at the beginning is I really do want to see everybody participating in the chat and putting your answers. Just that act will help you kind of consolidate what we're doing. If you're just watching, it's much harder to absorb things. Okay, so remember, I'm asking you for the 10th term in this pattern. Notice how I'm not going to write out to the 10th term. I'm going to use my formula. So T10 is going to be 4 times 10 minus 3, which is 37. And then T15 is going to be 4 times 15 minus 3, which is 57. Yeah. Okay, so what I want to point out to you is a couple of things. The first thing is not all number patterns have to be linear number patterns or patterns that you add up a constant amount. But if you are adding a constant amount like this, you can follow a very specific way to generate the formula. Once you generate that formula, it's easy to work out what the 15th term is in the pattern. You can work out the 100th term because you've taken all that knowledge and you've put it into the formula. Okay. For those who are still struggling, don't worry. I'm going to go over more now, but I'm going to ask those who are comfortable to do these following. We were doing these in the last lesson, and I'm going to ask you to work out these 3. And then for those students who are still feeling like they need more help, I'm going to do number 13. But if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and do 13, 14, and 15 while I work on that. Okay, give me a thumbs up if that makes sense to you and you're good. If you need extra help, you're going to watch me do 13. If you are comfortable, you'll do 13, 14, and 15. Okay. So just give us a thumbs up if that works for you. If everything sounds good. Okay. So if we look at number 13, it says here is a linear sequence, or maybe I would say a linear number pattern. And all that means is that the number pattern is going up by a constant amount, or it has a step size of something. The step size in this case is going to be plus 4 because I'm going up in 4s, 8, 12, 16, 20. The next one would be 24. The first term here is 8. Now, when I work out my formula now, the step size and the first term are really important because they help us build the formula. The one is the initial part, and the first term helps us balance the formula. So let's do that now. What were the 2 pieces of vocabulary that we needed? Well, we needed this thing called Tn, which is the term value. So Tn. And I also needed the n value. Now, it is not true that Tn equals n. That's just the starting point. And what I did in the previous thing was I said the number that goes in front is the step size, or the amount it's going up by. So it's going to be 4. However, this does not match. If I sub in, at the moment, this formula says the first term is 4, the second term is 8 and 12. You can see that it's out of alignment with what we do there. So now what we do is we look at the first term being 8 and we ask ourselves, how do we adjust? So currently my first term is 4 and I want to get to 8. So in order to get there, I need to add 4. So let's test if this works now. For T1 at the moment, this says 4 times 1 plus 4, which is 8. So that's good news because there's an 8. Then T2 would be 4 times 2 plus 4, which is 8 plus 4, which is 12. Okay, I'm good to go. All right, so if that helped, if that explanation helped, just give a thumbs up. If you would like a little bit, another example like that from, just give a, yeah, let me get, tell me in the chat if that was helpful or not. Okay, let's try and do 14 and 15. Using the same ideas. I'll give you a bit more time to do those. Okay, so the chat, someone has said step size is 9. Yeah, step size is 9. What's the first term? First term is that. Okay. Watu, I see you've raised your hand. You want to ask a question? Watu? Okay, maybe it was just a maybe Watu was. Yeah, go ahead.
Say, how do you get this step?
Say that again.
How do you get the step?
How do you get the step? Okay, good question.
Yeah.
If you look at 14, one of the easiest ways to check is if I take the second term and I subtract it from the first term. So 16 minus 7, I get 9. And then you ask yourself, how much more is 25 from 16? And if that's also 9 ahead, the step size is basically how much it's going from the first item in the number pattern to the second. So it's how much it's going up from. And if you notice it's always going up by the same amount, the way you'll see that is by subtracting successive terms. So you go 16 minus 7, what do you get? 25 minus 16, what do you get? So that's one way of doing it.
Okay.
Does that help? Like, if you look at number 15, let's look at number 15 together. What's the step size going to be here? Well, what's the difference between 17 and 10? I think the difference is 7. Like if I went 17 minus 10. But now I need to check what's the difference between 24 and 17? Is it also 7? If it is, I can check the third one. What's 31 minus 24? We know the step size here is 7. What we would call, sometimes people call it the constant difference. But it means the same thing. And so since we've been doing this for a while, I almost know already the start of the formula is going to have that 7 pop up in it. But I still need you to do a bit more work, and then you can pop the answer in the chat. Yeah, so step size is 7. You're perfectly correct. Yeah. Now, for those of you who are feeling very comfortable, what I want you to do in number 15 is I want you to work out for me T15, and I also want you to work out T20 for me. So just for number 15, if you've got a bit of extra time and you're feeling comfortable, I want you to work out what's the 15th term in the list, what's the 20th term in the sequence. Yeah. So pop those answers in the chat once you've got them. So let's have a look. I'm going to get 7N. Now, how do we balance the first one? Let's have a look. At the moment, it says my first term is 7. and the first term in the list is 10. So what's the difference between 7 and 10? I need to go up by, I think I need to go up by 3. So the formula that I get is 7n plus 3. And let's just make sure I've done this correctly. If I put a 1 in, my first term will be 10, which is happy for me because there's my 10. My second term, 7 times 2 plus 3, which would be 17. And it does look like we are winning at life. And now, so it's 24, yes. And so it continues. Now, what is T15 and T20?
Mr. S,
Yeah.
Motlhago says that he or she doesn't understand. If you don't mind going through that again.
Okay, so the main steps we need to look at are step size is step 1. So once you find the step size, that has to do with how much is this going up by. Then the second part, so that's, I want you to focus how suddenly there's a 7 in my formula. So whenever you write the formula, you always well, the first term would just be 7 times 1. Okay. Now, 7 is 3 short of 10. And so that's why, if you look here, we need to get to 10, but we're stuck at 7. We have to add 3. Okay. I seem to have been cutting out there for some reason. Okay. I'm gonna pick this up. Can you hear me now, Label?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. S.
Okay. I'm going to pick up, don't worry, there's going to be more chance to practice later in the lesson. So let me just quickly do T15. Okay. So T15 is just going to be 7 times 15 plus 3. And that is just going to be 7 times 15, 7 plus 3, and you get 108. And T20 is going to be 7 times 20 plus 3, which is going to be 143. So those are the two answers, which I think in the chat seem to be working out quite well. I will come back for those who are struggling a little bit, but I think for now, the most part, we'll come back. Okay. What I want to do is I want to try some different ones. So let me move these ones out of the way. I'm going to give you 3 of them to do. Let me move those down here. And before we go for a break, you guys are going to try and build formulas for these 3 for me. Okay, so here are 3 number patterns. I will call them A, B, and C. And I want you to try and build formulas for each of them. Okay, and once you've done it, you can put it in the chat. Then I'm going to ask you some other questions, but I really want to make sure we've got this process waxed. So what would be I'm not giving you anything else. I'm just saying, find me the formula in the form Tn equals something like we've been doing. Find me the formula for this one. And I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to do that.
Mr. S, while they do that,
Yes.
do you mind going back to number 15? There's still some confusion about that.
Okay.
About how you found the
Can I just
formula.
ask all the students who are on, can you just write down these numbers, or maybe just take a screenshot quickly if I'm going to go back, because I'm aware that if I move the screen, it's going to change the Maybe I can go grab number 15. So you're saying there's a problem with number 15, 10, 17, 24. Okay, let me see if I can do this at the bottom. 10, 17, 24. So those who are struggling with number 15, what are they struggling with? What part? Do you know? Or
how you found the formula.
okay, so let's go through number 15 at the bottom while everyone else is busy with the other ones. First of all, you need to find the step size, how much it's going up by to go from, this is position 1 here. So that's position 1. Then the second item in the number pattern is there. And then the third item is there. How much is it going up by each time to get from the first item to the second? And what we notice is it's going up by 7. So that's step 1. Now, when we start to build our formula, we're going to use that 7. Okay, and the way we're going to use it is we're going to say Tn equals 7n. But the problem is that doesn't tell the truth. At the moment, that formula, Tn equals 7n, it will generate a first term. Look how I put a 1 where the n is. Look how I put a 1 there. Now, if I do that, this is going to be 7 times 1, which is 7. Unfortunately, the first term of this formula is 7, but the first term of my, number pattern is 10. And so now I'm short by 3. I'm getting 7 and I want 10. Now, how do I get from 7 to 10? I have to add 3. And that's how I get the formula. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit. I'll try and leave that up while I do this next one. So in this next one, the step size here is going to be 6. So it's going up in 6s. 6, 6, 6. And so the formula is going to be not y. It's going to be Tn is 6n. But now I've got the same problem, because if I look at this formula at the moment, T1 is just 6 times 1, which is 6. And 6 is not my first term. My first term is 1. So what do I need to do still? It's almost like there's a little bit that's missing over here. What am I going to fill in here to make sure this equation balances? I want to have a look at the chat. What do we have in the chat? Are there any ideas yet? Okay, so yeah, I see it there. You'll notice that if I'm at 6 and I need to get down to 1, I should be taking away 5. And so the answer there should be -5. And I can also check to see if I'm correct. If I'm correct, it will generate the pattern that is over here. So let's see if I get this pattern. T1, 6 times 1 minus 5, that's 1. T2 is 12 minus 5, which is 7. Yeah, so things are going well. And then I'm going to speed up a little bit for B. And I'm going to say automatically, I'm jumping straight to where I put the 7 in, because I notice this is going up in 7s. But now I have to balance it. And I hope every time we do this, is your brain starting to feel a bit more comfortable building the formula? So like now, for example, I know that my first term using this formula is going to be 7, which is wrong, because what I really wanted was an 11. But now all I need to do is add 4 like that. And so that's my formula. Okay, I want to see in the chat. I haven't seen C's answers come up, so I'm going to wait a little bit more and then we'll have our little break. But if I see C coming through, then I feel like we've mastered this formula part, number formula. How do I get -5? Sorry?
No, sorry. There was a bit of confusion. Setu wasn't sure how to get the formula, but I see they just replied now that he's
Okay.
good.
Let me go through C in detail again, and then I think we deserve a little bit of a break. Okay, so how does this process work? Step one, we want to see what is it going up by. In fact, first of all, we need to check, is it going up by a constant amount? I think it's going up by 8. So that is step one. Is it going up by 8? Perfect. It is going up by 8. So once I know it's going up, it has a step size. I know that it is a linear pattern, and so I can use this method I've been teaching you. So what is the step? I say this equals 8n. Now, I think most of us are getting to this stage fine. It's this next step where it's getting confusing. And again, I want you to point out, if I just left this formula and I said, I'm done now, what would the first term be that you would get? If you put a 1 in for n, because remember the first term, n is the position number, so n is 1. At the moment, my first term I would get would be 8. However, that's a problem because 8 is not what I want. What I really wanted was 6. So what can I do to get from 8 down to 6?
-2.
Yes, exactly. And so we take away 2. Now, whenever you are building, so whenever you see a number pattern where it's going up by a step size, a constant amount, you're always going to have 2 parts or 3 parts to solving it, to building a formula. It's write down the letters T, N, and N. Then it's going to be put the step size in, and then it's going to be this balancing factor over there. And once you've done those 3 parts, you've now built a formula. Now, this formula can do many magical things for you. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the second half of the lesson. But until you know how to build the formula, it's much harder to work with these things. Okay. All right. I'm now going to ask everyone to stand up because we've been doing hard work. And so I want you all to get away from your desks, and I want you to show me I'm not going to do anything because I've been doing this a lot lately. I want you to show me your best pen flip, and I'm going to look at the audience and see who is the pen flip champion. Lebo, I want you to keep a very close eye on the cameras to see who we think has mastered the art of pen flipping the best. And I want you to start. Okay. You can choose whatever hand. You can choose left hand or right hand, but I want to see, can you flip it so that it only spins once? Okay, so let's see it on those cameras. Lakiwe is looking pretty good. Charity also, I'm impressed. This technique is good. Okay, who's the most enthusiastic? Trevor's looking pretty enthusiastic. I like what I'm seeing there. Peter also. Okay, sometimes it blurs, so it's hard to see exactly on that.
Liku seems to have got it.
Yeah, very natural. You can see the pen is spinning just once.
Yeah.
Who else? Lakiwa, I think you're going to be my pen flip champion for the day, based on what I've seen so far. Evidence suggests you are the winner there. All right. So guys, if you're feeling okay with the formulas, can you give us a thumbs up? If you're still feeling a bit unsure, can you give us a thumbs down? I just want to get a quick feel for the class before I move on to more stuff. Okay, let's go from here. Okay, how are we looking there?
We have quite a few thumbs up, mostly thumbs up.
All right. And so even for students, we're not finished with this. We will practice it some more, but I think it's time to change the question. So what I want to do now is I want to focus on C, and I want to ask you a question. Is the number 62 in pattern C? So I'm saying here is a number 62, and I'm asking you, is this number in the pattern above here? So let me not get rid of everything. Hold on, leave that there. I want you to tell me in the chat, is the number 62 in pattern C? I want everyone to say yes or no. Okay, so some of you said 62. I want to know, how were you able to know? What did you do to check if 62 was in the pattern? Because I don't see 62 in the pattern at the moment. What did you do in your brain? You can even come on and give me an audio comment. What did you do to get 62?
So
To check if, yeah?
I kept on adding 8 until I got to 62.
Yeah. So you went 38 plus 8 is 46. And then
Yes,
you
sir.
said 54. And then you said 62. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Now this works very well if the number isn't too big, like 62. But if I said to you a bigger number, it would be much harder. So what we need is a way to check if that a number is in a pattern using an approach that doesn't require you to count out everything manually. So for those who are feeling confused, can you all see that if you count it up in eights, right? If you count it up in eights, starting at 38, what comes after? If you add 8 more, you get 46. If you add 8 more to that, you get 54. If you add 8 more to that, you get 62. So the answer is 62 is in the pattern, and we could count it manually. But I want to show you a way of figuring this out without counting, because it will be helpful if for numbers that are bigger. So let me show you this. If I look back at my formula, do you agree that Tn stands for the value of the term and n stands for the position in the pattern? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 62 and I'm going to sub it into my formula. Now watch this. 62 has been subbed into the formula where there used to be a Tn. Now, we are going to use something called equations to help us solve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for this n over here. So in an equation, if I want to solve an equation, one of the first things I have to do is deal with the -2. And I'd like to know in the chat, what can I do to get rid of this -2 or start to solve this equation? I'd like to see in the chat, what do I need to do? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm going to solve it inverse. Yep. So what I'm going to do, not divide, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to go 2 plus and 2 plus, because that's the inverse process of -2. So what I then get, if I add 2 to both sides, is I get 64 equals 8n. So take a moment to see if you understood what I did there. I basically just added 2 on both sides, and that was to get rid of that. Now, the next step, so what I'm doing, Remofilo, is I'm just solving for n. I'll explain in a moment why I'm doing this. But basically, if I want to solve for n here, at the moment, sorry guys, I'm going to
Guys, please
divide
keep
both
yourselves
sides
on
by 8.
mute.
Okay. And if I do that, 64 divided by 8 is going to be 8, which means n is 8. what this tells us is that 62 was the 8th item in the list. So the position 62 is in the 8th position. So let's just check that it really is in the 8th position. Let's count from the beginning together. Position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I'm going to do this again. Don't worry. This is the first time I'm showing you. First of all, I want to show you that I'm using the formula and that it's the 8th, 62 is the 8th position in the formula. So that's all you have to sort of get for now. All right, now if you're confused, just pause in your brain what's going on there. I'm going to do this again, but with a different number. So I'll show you now in a moment. So instead of using the number 62, I'm going to ask you, is the number 78, okay, is the number 78 in this pattern? Okay, so is the number 78 in this pattern? I think most of you can see that because if you add 8 more, you get to 70. And then if you add 8 more after that, you get 78. So I don't think it's too difficult we don't need to debate. 78 is definitely in this list. Now, what I want to show you is this method, though, is without having to count up to 78, how we can use the formula. So watch this. In my formula, which is over here, we've got Tn equals 8n minus 2. And I'm going to sub in the value 78, where there is a Tn, and then the rest of the formula is going to be written like this. Now, what I want to do is I want to solve for n, and I suspect if I've done this right, it should give me the value. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if life is going well, I can see that 78 is the 10th position. It's in the 10th position. So let's do some algebra. And just like before, in order to get rid of the minus 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So just ask yourself if you understand that. I'm adding 2 because it's the inverse process of minus 2. If I do that properly, I should get 80 equals 8n, because the minus 2 and plus 2 get rid of each other. Then the last step is to say, look, this 8 over here is bugging me. I want n by itself. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to divide both sides by 8, and then I'm going to get 10 equals n. Okay. Now, is that what we expected? It is, because it's the 10th item in the list. Okay, now you may think, why is this man making me go through all this trouble? But I want to ask you this question now. I want to ask you, which position is the number 150 in the list? So I'm telling you that 150 is in this pattern, but I want to know what number is it in the pattern. What position number is 150? And I want you to do that without counting out manually. It is a bit complicated, Kieran. So I want you to all I want you to do is I want you to try and think, what would the first step be? So according to what I've been doing so far, if I wanted to work out what 150, I'm telling you 150 is in this pattern. Now, in order to get there though, I would have to count. I have to keep counting up in 8s. So like 78 plus 8 is 86, and then 94, and that will take a long time. So what I'm suggesting is, instead of doing it like that, you take this 150 and you put it where the Tn is. And then you are going to be left with this formula. And if you're able to solve this formula, you can find the position in the list. So I want you guys to try and work that out. See if you can do it. We will do this again in the next lesson. Yeah.
Sorry, if you're able to take a question, there's one from Kamuhelo.
Go ahead.
Kamuhelo, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing.
Sir.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Sir, I was asking, sir, sir, how do you, basically, sir, how do you work out the methods?
Okay, so the methods I'm teaching you because of obviously I have more experience. Can I suggest for now, we just practice getting this process down. And then in a later lesson, when your brain has got this process organized, I can explain a bit more about how it's working. But I feel like if I explain too much now, it's not going to land. You need to almost get this process down. So guys, I see quite a few people are getting there with the answer. I just want to point out the method is almost the same. All I need to do is divide both sides by 8 at the end. I get 152 divided by 8. And I should get n equals 19. Now, what that means is the following. It means that in proper sequence notation, we can say that T19 equals 150. So I want you to just take a moment to think about that, because that looks a bit confusing when you first see it. But ask yourself, do you understand what I mean? The 19th term, that's why it's called T19, is equal to 150. Okay, now we will start the next lesson with this, but I just want to try and do, actually, no, maybe I should stop there for today. I think maybe that is enough. If I push this any further, let's do one more question like this. Let me say, so we're going to mimic the same process again. I'm going to do one more question. So instead of 150, I'm going to ask you about 60, so 214. I want to know the value 214. What position is the term value 214? What is the position of the value 214? Go for it. Sorry, guys, someone is not on mute. So let's finish today with 214, and then Lebo, you can get the quiz ready. I want to know from students using the method we've done now, what position is the term value 214 in?
Ask you to put yourself on mute when I mute you.
Okay, please, everyone. Thank you. Let's be respectful of everyone, because we know people are concentrating hard. We need some. Okay, so we go 214 equals 8n minus 2. Then we add 2 to both sides, and we get 216 is 8n. And then we get 216 divided by 8. And you should see that you get 27. And so term 27 is equal to 214. So guys, in summing up what we did today, we learned how to build formulas from just a normal number pattern. We learned how to apply the formulas to get like the 10th or the 15th position in the pattern. And then the hardest thing we did today was we learned how to work backwards. If I give you a number that is in the pattern, but it's further on, and I say to you, what position is it in? You learned how to use the formula to work backwards. And I think that was a very good step. And so I think you can feel good. We will continue with this next week. But for now, I just want you to let that sink in. And then Lebo, if I could ask you to please put the, could you please put the link to the chat, to the quiz in the chat?
Okay.
And if I could ask, please, students to put themselves on mute. There are a few noises coming through. but yeah, guys, well done. I think that you did well. I did push you hard today, but I know that if you just see it today, if we do another question next week, Monday, about this, it'll be so much easier than the first time you see it. Okay. Lebo, Lebo, anything from you on your side?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
I just sent through the link, so guys, please attempt it. It's just to see how you've been doing and if you've grasped what we've been doing. So don't take it more as a test, take it more as
Someone is
a
making. Why is there's somebody who's on unmute? Please mute yourself. We need to be considerate of those around us. Osetu, we're not doing the poll today. We're doing a poll on Monday. No poll today. Yeah. So guys, please, we need to be considerate. There are quite a few of us in the room, and this works really, really well if we're all kind of focusing, but I need to spend my time looking for helping people, not for kind of keeping track of who's making noises. So please, okay, yeah. So I think, Lebo, if we could just keep track of who that was. And again, it's just about being considerate of everyone around us. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I hope that you have a splendid rest of your holiday. Well done on working hard this afternoon. Enjoy the quiz, and I will see you on Monday. And thank you, Lebo, very much. It was great working with you. Is there a quiz? There is a quiz. Have a look, Peter, have a look, and maybe, Lebo, if you could repost the quiz link. I think it's just, there is a quiz. So students, if I could ask everybody to please go onto that quiz now and do that quiz as we finish today. Okay. All righty. So Lebo, I'm going to make you, by Charity, I'm going to make you a, what is it? Oh. So Lebo, I think if we could put iPhone 2 in the waiting room, that would, I think that is the,
okay.
That would be easiest, I think, for now. Thanks. Cool. All righty.
I tell the table to give you scissors. Fake for you.
Then, all right. So I'm going to make Leo. Okay. Thanks, Lebo. I'm going to pop off now. So.
Okay, Mr. S.
Cheers. Have a good one. Bye.
Guys, are there any more questions? Does anyone have a question?
Oh,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Joseph.
I'm sorry, but I was late because I had a little bit of network problem. But if I can ask, where can I get the work?
Just hold on. Nicole, are you still on the video call? Okay, Nicole is not there. Joseph, to answer your question, you can log on to the website with your details because you do have your Watobe sign up details, and then you can access all the lessons from there. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Are there any other questions?
No.
Guys, please do click on the link for the quiz. Try it out. It's just to see how you're doing with the concept that we did today and if you still need to practice a bit more on it. So take it more as a learning process rather than a test. And you can attempt it many times, so you can do it over and over again until you get it right. That will also help you practice. If there aren't any questions, if you don't have any questions, guys, you can exit the video call. The lesson is over, so we'll see you again next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Tatum. Does anyone else have a question? Are you all okay? If you don't have any questions, guys, remember you can exit the video call. The lesson is done. Again, please try out the quiz. And then if you have any questions, just note them down and you can ask them at the next class on Monday. Okay, so seeing as there aren't any more questions, I'm going to end the call now. Thanks for joining us, guys. See you again next week. Have a good evening. I don't understand your question, Peter. Do you mind just can you just ask it again? Maybe unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, does the video, like the Zoom ID,
Yes.
stay the same for all Zoom meetings?
No. So you are going to have to edit your name again next time. If you want to put a different name to what you have on now, then you have to edit it every time you come onto the call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you mean the ID for the lesson or your display name?
Yes, the ID for the lesson.
No, oh, sorry. No, the one for the lesson stays the same. It's going to be this one until we finish the topic on number patterns.
Okay, and then it'll change when we start a new lesson.
Yes, yes. When we start a new lesson, it will change, but we will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
No, I do not have a question. However, I do find the quiz quite challenging, but I'll figure it out.
Okay. When the lesson is uploaded, then remember, guys, you can still go and watch it again if you still need some clarity on a few things.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye, Setu. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, since there's no questions, I'm going to end the call now, guys. So yeah, try your best on the quiz. Remember, it's not for marks. It's just to see how you're doing so far and if you still need to practice a few things. And also don't forget to note your questions. If you're still confused about something, you can ask in the class on Monday. So enjoy your evening and your weekend.